Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Alright, and in this video I will read from from as he pulled into the driveway of number 4 here to here. How very wrong he was. Alright, here we go. Wait a minute, please. Okay, let's go. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing he saw, and it didn't improve his mood, was a tabby cat he spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same one. It had the same markings around its eyes. "Shoo!" said Mr. Dursley loudly. The cat didn't move. It just gave him a startled look. Was this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dursley wondered, trying to pull himself together. He let himself into the house. He was still determined not to mention anything to his wife. Mrs. Dursley had had a nice, normal day. He told him over dinner all about Mrs. Next Door's problems with her daughter and how Dolly had learned a new word, sense. Mr. Dursley tried to act normally. When Dolly had been put to bed, he went into the living room in time to catch the last report on the evening news. And finally, bird watchers everywhere have reported that the nation's owls have been behaving every unusual day. Although owls normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight. There have been hundreds of sightings of these birds flying in every direction since sunrise. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. The newsreader allowed himself a grin. Most mysterious. And now, over to Jim McGruffins. With the weather going to be any more showers of owls tonight, Jim? Well, Ted, said the weatherman, I don't know how about that, but it's not only the owls that have been acting owly today. Viewers at Far Park as Kent, Yorkshire, and Dundee have been phoning in to tell me that instead of the rain I promised yesterday, they've had a downpour of shooting stars. Perhaps people have been celebrating bonfire nights early. It's not until next week, folks. But I can promise a wet night tonight. Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars all over Britain, owls flying by daylight, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place, and a whisper by the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. He'd have to say something to her. He cleared his throat nervously. Petunia, dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you?" As he had expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. After that, they normally pretended she didn't have a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Funny stuff on the news. Mr. Dursley mumbled. Hours, shooting stars, and there were lots of funny-looking people in town today. So, snapped Mrs. Dursley. Well, I just thought maybe it was something to do with, you know, her lot. Mrs. Dursley sipped her tea through pursed lips. Mr. Dursley wondered whether he dared tell her he'd heard the name Potters. He decided he didn't dare. Instead, he said as casually as he could, "The son, he'd be about Dolly's age now, wouldn't he?" "I suppose so," said Mrs. Dursley stiffly. "What's his name again? Howard, isn't it?" "Harry. Nasty, common name, if you ask me." "Oh, yes," asked Mr. Dursley, his heart sinking horribly. "Yes, I quite agree." He didn't say another word on the subject as he went upstairs to bed. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom, Mr. Dursley crept to the bedroom window and peered down into the front garden. The cat was still there. It was staring down Privet Drive and thought it was waiting for something. Was he imagining things? Could all this have anything to do with the Potters? If it did, if I got out that they were related to a pair of, well, he didn't think he couldn't bear it. The Dursleys got into bed. Mrs. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning it all over in his mind. His last comforting thought before he fell asleep was that even if that the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him and Mrs. Dursley. The Potters knew very well what he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. He couldn't see how he and Petunia could get mixed up in anything that might be going on. He yawned and turned over. It couldn't affect them. How very wrong he was. Alright, and that is the end of today's video. Okay, and tomorrow I will read these books again of episode 5. Okay, episode 5 of chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Okay, remember to watch. Thank you very much. Goodbye.